First, I'll start off with the superficial back line. The superficial back line is a myofascial meridian that connects the entire backside of the body from the plantar surface down here of the toes to the brow line of the frontal bone on the forehead. The superficial back line acts to contract the back of the body and then stretches during forward bends. This symmetrical line originates on the plantar surfaces of the toe phalanges and follows the plantar surface of the feet. The postural function of the superficial back line is to balance out the superficial front line, and it is also used to support the body while it is in full extension. The movement function of the back line is flexion in the knees, plantar flexion in the ankles. If you'd like to stretch this one out, a stretch that you can do is the downward dog pose. Next, there is the superficial front line. The superficial front line links the entire front side of the body. It links the toes to the pelvis, and then the pelvis all the way up to the head. It begins on the dorsal surface of the toes through the short and long toe extensor muscles. The superficial front line functionally balances the superficial back line in the sagittal anterior posterior plane. It gives tensile support from the top to lift the pubis, ribcage, and the face. The muscles of the superficial front line are also used to protect the front of the body. The superficial front line acts to contract the front of the body and then stretches during back-bending activities. The movement function of the front line is flexion of the trunk and the hips, extension of the knees, and dorsiflexion of the foot. A stretch that you can do for the front line is just a simple back bend. Next, there is the lateral line. The lateral line gives the frontal plane stability. It starts at the medial and lateral midpoint of the foot, where it begins at the base of the first metatarsal at the insertion point of the peroneus longus muscle. The lateral line traverses up the side of the body and extends to the trunk, where it forms a crisscross pattern up in here, and then it continues to extend up to the ear. The postural function of the lateral line is to balance out the left and right movements of the body, as well as to balance out the front and back side. Secondly, it mediates the SFL, the SBL, all the arm lines, and the spiral line as well. The lateral line functions to stabilize the lower body while the upper body is moving. The movement function of the lateral line is lateral flexion in the trunk, abduction of the hip, and eversion of the foot. The lateral line is activated in strengthening side bends, so a stretch you can do is just an easy side bend. Lastly, there is the spiral line. The spiral line wraps around the body in a double helix. The spiral line forms distinct spirals of deep myofascial connections looping around the legs and the torso. The spiral line connects one side of the skull across the back to the opposing shoulder, which sort of wraps around to the front to the opposing shoulder, and then across to the front of the body, down the trunk, to the knee, and then the foot, and then it again wraps around to the back of the body to connect to the starting fascia. The spiral line posturally functions to keep the body balanced across all the planes. The spiral line creates, compensates, and maintains twists, rotations, and lateral shifts of the body. Its main movement function is to create and mediate spirals and rotations of the body. So an easy stretch that you can do for the spiral line is just a simple spine twist.